kick off. First of all, welcome to all of you to this webinar on a safe Suez transit. My name is Mikkel Hansen. I'm CEO of Aprendio, and we have a very exciting program for you this afternoon. But first, let me just share with you one slide that basically says it all and says why we're here. Suez Canal groundings doubled this year. So in 2021, we had the Ever Given grounding, which made a major havoc also for world trade. Even this year, we were reminded a few days ago that this is not just once in a while, seldom occurrence, but it's actually quite often we have groundings, we have incidents in Suez Canal. And therefore, today's topic is very timely and very relevant because we've got to keep in mind that we need to constantly to build resilience in our organization and ensure safety for our crews on board, the environment, and of course also the disruption of world trade that an issue and a grounding or an incident in the Suez Canal can have an impact on. Personally, I have a maritime background, and my first Suez Canal transit was actually on New Year's Eve in 1994. I remember clearly boarding the Gertrude Maersk in Port Said and then southbound. It was an immense, fantastic experience. This construction by Ferdinand de Lesseps started in 1859 and completed 10 years after, has made a real impact on the way we live in the world today and the way world trade is happening, and that has a major impact on our lives. This afternoon, in this webinar, it's focused on a course that our partner Force Technology has developed, actually in order to ensure that we have the best trained and resilient crew to enable the safe transit of ships. We will start by having Captain Jan Michelsen from Force giving you all the intro and the background, a brief introduction to Force Technology. And then Captain Jens Tommerup will take over and introduce this topic of navigating safely through the Suez Canal. At the end of the session, we have a Q&A session, and I'm sure you probably will have questions popping up along the presentation. Please make sure to write them in the chat, and then we'll make sure that we pick up your questions in the end. And stay tuned for the full webinar this afternoon, because in the end we'll also reveal some nice, interesting discount codes that will enable you to get a good cut off this course as an introductory offer. So enough of that. I would like to give you the floor, Jan, and I'll just put on the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mikkel, for the fly-in to the topic that we're going to discuss this afternoon, and also thanks a lot to all the participants that have decided to spend half an hour with us. My name is Jan Michelsen. I'm director here at Force Technology, and I'm joined by my good colleague, Captain Jens Tommerup, who will later on dive into the exciting content that we have prepared here today. I'll just give you a short introduction to Force Technology for those of you that are not familiar with Force Technology today. If you can just jump to the next slide, Mikkel. So some highlights here. We basically have more than 400 plus unique facilities within the Force Technology group, and we conduct more than we have more than 5,000 participants that actually attend our courses during the year. Where Jens and I is based is in Lyngby, north of Copenhagen, and that is basically where we have all our maritime facilities inside Force Technology. So if you can jump to the next one. So when we look at the facilities we have here in Lyngby, so we have a variety of disciplines that are basically covered here within the facility. Simulation, port, and training, that's the business I'm looking after. Then we also have the department where we have the aeronautical and also hydrodynamic disciplines. And everything ties nicely together, because in order to conduct the best training and also to have the best models and also simulation setup, we need a lot of data for that. And that is basically the data, the model data we collect when we do our tow tank testing and also testing in our wind tunnels. And that is all the data that goes into making the simulator models, which of course are important because what we strive for each and every day is to have models that actually are as close as possible to the real ship in order to make sure that we can deliver the best learning output. If you jump again, Mikkel. In terms of if you dive into to the topic around education or training, what we basically deliver today is course around standard ship handling. Of course, we also do a lot of customized courses. We have a lot of focus on tug handling, and also bridge resource management is also a strong discipline here internally, and of course also combined with the discipline around pilot training and also training for VTS personnel. We do a lot of accident investigation, conduct that. Of course, that is what we try to avoid. But again, it is a global business, and as we all are aware, there's a lot of assets out there, and accidents do occur. Then we also do emergency response management, and we basically have more than 25 years of experience in course development. In all modesty, we believe that we're fairly good at that, and we have extremely experienced instructor, and of course that's an important part. One thing is the technology, which is developed in-house and is used around the globe. But in terms of actually delivering content, of course, we also need to have an experienced instructor that can actually deliver that. In terms of the Suez Transit course, it is a course that we have been conducting and delivered for many years. And you can say the partnership with Aprendio, what we see that is we see it as a very nice add-on where we can basically take the content that we have been delivering within our facilities for many years, and we have tied it into a new package with focus on e-learning. You can say we have squeezed it a little bit, tried to compress it to make sure we have a very nice package we can deliver via the Aprendio platform. So we think it's super exciting, and also of course we don't want to keep all the knowledge that we have and also learning within a tight community. It is our overall aim here that we can basically spread it out and distribute the content to a broader audience. So I think that was the fly-in and the intro that I wanted to give, and then I will hand over the presentation and the floor to my good colleague, Captain Jens Tommerup, who will dive more into the detailed content. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Jan, and over to you, Jens. Jens, are you there?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
fine.
okay,
Loud and clear now. Good.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me here this afternoon. The background for the Suez Transit megaship course and the e-learning are the force technology for more than 1 decade have made Suez Transit courses for both tanker and container companies. Mikkel, can you please change the slide? Yeah. There have, from the first megaship past the Suez Canal, been challenges for these vessels when passing in way of banking effect and huge draft angles, leading to this banking effect as well as required attention to vessels' location in the channel. It has showed that the way to handle these challenges are procedures and strict bridge resource management combined with trained ships handling skills and necessary support to the captains from the company. And this can minimize the risk for near misses and accidents. Please change the slide again. The course have been developed in cooperation with some of the customers who have approached force technology for assistance when they discover they have challenges when passing the Suez Canal. Force technology have assisted the customers with both procedures for transiting the Suez Canal and preparation for prior to the transit. Please change again. And one more time. Force technology for force technology to better understand the challenges. My colleague Captain Rabia went through the Suez Channel with a container vessel to observe such transit and to detect what has been the challenge when transiting. And it was observed that stricter bridge resource management was required, and the officers need to have training in handling bank effects. Also, special areas in the channel was detected during the transit. Please shift again. And this have led to the development of the e-learning course with text for approach each part of the course and final test covering the whole subject of the Suez Channel transit. And after the completion of the e-learning course, participants shall attend the simulator and make the necessary hands-on training to improve their skills. Yeah, that was more or less what I have to tell about the transit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jens.
Welcome.
So it's a say complex maneuver, and while people are probably preparing a few questions on what to that they could ask you guys about, then I've just prepared a few or thought about a few, because one thing is all this preparation you need both before entering the Suez Canal and also making sure you have a good bridge team working in order, and you have clear procedures and so on. Are aware of effects like the bank effect and how that will affect your vessel. So are you able to share, say, if you are actually in a situation where you do run aground, what are the first best mitigating actions you could take as a bridge crew when the accident did happen, if the accident did happen?
Yeah, that's difficult because when you are running aground, you have to rely on the assistance you can get from the authorities. So it's very our main training is how to rescue the vessel, how to protect the vessel from actual grounding. You might have a bottom touch, but it's more to avoid the grounding than deal with the grounding afterwards.
Yeah. All right, and I think it is also, I think, without knowing details, there's probably also learnings on if things are starting to go, excuse my wording, haywire, then being stuck in a place like the Ever Given is not the most optimal situation. So I think also considering maybe, and also in shipping companies considering mitigation actions could also be a place. Then maybe a different thing, because you talk about mega ships. Does that mean that if you're on a smaller vessel, like when I were on the Gertrud Maersk, which was a smaller gas carrier in nowadays terms, shouldn't we worry at all by both bridge team and the bank effect?
For sure, you should always be alert to the bank effect, and you also have to be sure that you have a good bridge team management to avoid any kind of accident. There have not been so many accidents with the smaller ships, but it happened, and the situation is of course the same for the smaller ships as for the bigger ones. The bank effect also, now we are talking Suez and Suez transit, but it also happens in smaller channels around the world where the ships is huge compared to the size of the channel. I hope that.
Yeah, all right, thanks. And also, I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here. We will mention a little bit that some of the investigations prior to the course also were on mega ships. So in that sense, container ships. That typically comes with both a nice draft, but also you have a pretty good many square meters above the water, which could also be an issue for wind. So comparing tankers with where you mainly have the draft problem to container ships, any reflections there?
Yeah, it is so that of course the draft angle of a container vessel will be much bigger because of the large windage area, and that's something that you have to consider before you enter the channel. How is the weather forecast, and how can you avoid to have too big draft angle? Because you will fill out the channel if you have a too big draft angle, and then you will come close to the bank on either side, and you will have a risk of banking effect that you cannot control. So of course it's important, but for tanker vessels in loaded condition, it's not such a big issue because they do not have much over the water or much windage area. But the vessels in ballast have a huge windage area compared to their wetted surface area, and they also have, if we are talking like LNG tankers also have a huge windage area, both in loaded condition and in ballast condition, and that have high effects on the transit. Another thing that is important with this here, with the bigger ships, is the width of the vessel compared to the size of the channel. These vessels we are talking, they are in the range of 55 to 60 something meters, and that gives them little room for deviating from the center line of the channel.
All right, thanks. Good point. And while there's still open room on the chat for a question or two or three, you're welcome for that. Then maybe for you, Jan, a question. So I think, what is your recommendations for shipping companies who basically want to take a more like a serious strategic grasp on building good bridge teams that are also well equipped for the risk they are exposed to, especially in say the Suez Channel specifically?
No, but I think it boils down to training. Training is everything. Yeah. And of course, training gives you, gives you a lot of leverage. The challenge that we see with some colleagues, and it boils down to the nature, some clients, and it boils down to the nature of the business. Is of course, within the bridge team, there's a lot of change for good reasons. People need to go home on leave, but I think training is important. And of course, being in the business we're in, we endorse practical hands-on simulation training, and we know that is not always possible. And that's also why we have decided to take this route, and why we believe the partnership with you guys is interesting, because it basically enables us to deliver content, high-level content, and also knowledge in a nice, neat package. And we think that's super exciting.
Yeah, I think I can also reveal that it's a possibility if you have people who are know that they have a Suez Canal on their itinerary, and maybe they might be a little rusty, then we can actually enable it to them while on transit, so they can become, say, even better prepared. So I think that's an option also worth considering. I think maybe I've asked all the right questions for people here, so maybe that's spot on. We didn't see any from the chat, so I think we will be starting to wrap up. In a few seconds, my colleagues will share you the link of the shop where you can purchase the access to the course. It's shop.aprendio.io. They will also be shared a small link to YouTube where you're actually taking through the purchase process, and where you can see how they log on to the e-learning platform is actually made. In addition, I'll share my email as well. So if you, for example, one option is to buy the course in a single instance or a few, but if you're interested in larger volumes, then that's of course also a possibility. So contact me, and Force and us together will make a good proposal for you, so you can make sure that we can actually help your organizations also, if that's in scale, to manage this transfer in a nice and orderly manner. So I think with that said, do you have any concluding remarks, Jan or Jens?
No, my last comment is just I just want to thank you and the Aprendio team for firstly organizing the webinar today, but also enabling our content on your platform. I think the overall journey that you're taking there is very exciting, and it definitely creates a new universe where we can deliver great content to the seafarers around the world. So well done on that, Mikkel. And again, I just want to thank everybody for attending the webinar today, and wish everybody a nice afternoon.
All right, thanks a lot for those words, Jan, and the cooperation is likewise very appreciated. For those of you who stayed until now, you can see the discount code, so you actually have the opportunity to get 30% off the course now. That's valid for a week and a half from now. And you see the code in the chat, but we will also send it to you afterwards, so you don't have to rush up and note it down. Well, thanks to you, gentlemen, for co-presenting, co-hosting this webinar. Thanks for you participants for being here, and also enabling this journey we're on, and making the maritime world safer and more resilient through training. We appreciate you being here. Reach out to any of us after the webinar here. You're more than welcome to that. And then I'd just like to thank my good colleagues as well, Nushin, Victoria, and Gabriela, for making this webinar possible. We wish you a nice day, everyone.
Thank you.